Sairam. Soccer is probably the world's most popular outdoor sport and game, and therefore it is apt that we pick an analogy from this game that is possibly played in more than 150 countries around the globe to understand why we find it hard to surrender to Swami or surrender to God. By the way, if we would like to know what is surrender according to Swami, you can have a look at the video in the link above. Now, imagine you are the goalkeeper of your football team and it is the penalty shootout. You have 1,000 things running in your head. You are going to be the single most important factor in determining whether your team wins or not. The more number of goals that you can block, the higher is the probability and chance of your team achieving a victory. And therefore, as a goalkeeper, what would be your thoughts? Should you dive to the left or should you dive to the right? Should you dive early or should you dive late? Because sometimes these players who are kicking the penalty shots, they kick it a little late. So should you dive early or late? Should you dive to the left or should you dive to the right? Now when you dive either to the left or right, should you dive down or should you dive up? Because is the player going to kick the ball up or the ball down? So among all these variables, you have to decide what needs to be done. But what would be the best course of action for you as a goalkeeper? Statistically, doing nothing would give you the best chance of stopping a goal. Let me explain. When I say doing nothing, it means just standing in the center without diving either to the left or right, early or late, up or down. Why? Because statistics shows that 39%, that is almost 40% of the penalty shots are kicked bang to the center. Whereas only 6% of the times do goalkeepers stand steady in the center. Amazing, right? And this happens because as a goalkeeper, I want to give my everything for the team. I want to do everything and anything possible to stop the goal. And my bias for action, my bias for doing something, doing everything, doing anything and everything possible is what makes me dive. Because standing in the center is doing nothing. How can I be a committed goalkeeper if I just stand in the center? Dear brothers and sisters, this bias for action, this bias for having to do anything, what should I do, is one of the most important factors that stops us from being able to surrender. It is also a way the ego expresses itself, and we will get a beautiful insight and a powerful lesson about this from an incident in the Mahabharata. For those who are not aware and familiar with the story, the Pandavas or the 5 good brothers are pitted against the Kauravas or the 100 bad brothers. And in order to defeat the good brothers with devious means, the Kauravas invite them for a game of dice. And on the Kaurava side is Shakuni, a person who is a master at dice and who has got magical dice that work in his favor. And therefore, the Pandavas begin to wager their kingdom, their riches, their wealth, different things, and keep losing consecutively. Finally, the eldest Pandava brother Yudhishthira wagers, puts on bet his last wealth, which is his own wife, Draupadi. And then they lose Draupadi as well. Duryodhana commands his evil brother Dushasana to drag Draupadi to the open court. And he says, now she is our property, we will treat her as we want. A terrible and dastardly crime is done. Dushasana goes to Draupadi's inner quarters and tells, "You come out." And when she refuses, he catches her, grabs her by her hair and begins to drag her. Now Draupadi is a princess and she is also strong. She resists, she fights, she pulls. She makes it very, very difficult for Dushasana to drag her. But still, Dushasana is a powerful bodybuilder. He is amazingly strong. And he begins to drag her. He drags her all the way from her room till the open court. And Draupadi is screaming, fighting, shouting, but all that is of no use. Reaching the court, she calls out to her husbands, the Pandava brothers. All the 5 are her husbands. And she calls out to them and asks them, beseeches them to save her, but they have all already lost themselves. And therefore, they can't do anything. They are so bound by dharma. They were such sincere adherents to dharma that they do nothing. They are just standing there. They're just standing there, and Draupadi is being dragged and she's thrown. And then Duryodhana tells Dushasana to do the most heinous crime. In fact, it is said that this single act was what was responsible for the destruction of the entire Kaurava race later in the war. But at that point in time, drunk in arrogance and pride, Duryodhana tells Dushasana to disrobe Draupadi, and Dushasana holds Draupadi's sari and begins to tug at it. Draupadi is trying her best, but she realizes that soon she is going to be disrobed. Dear brothers and sisters, have a look at this iconic scene that has been painted by numerous artists. Go online and search for the disrobing of Draupadi in the Kaurava royal court. You will observe something very, very unique. As Dushasana is pulling the sari of Draupadi, you will see that Draupadi is making no effort to resist. She is just standing there. This is impossible to imagine because that Draupadi who has been fighting so hard, she is definitely going to make efforts to clutch her sari, right? But no, because it is there that Draupadi has that insight. She realizes that the Lord is in charge and the Lord is taking care of everything. She lets go of her little ego. She realizes, I am nothing. I am just an instrument of the Lord. The Lord is everything, and she just lets go. They say, right? Let go, let God. This is not giving up. It is giving in to a higher power, a much higher power. That is surrender. Surrender is not about showing a white flag and giving up. Surrender is about giving into a higher power, knowing that this is the most powerful and loving force in the universe. So she says, Krishna, you take care, and she lets go. And as she lets go, Dushasana is pulling, and the sari is getting unraveled. Lord Krishna blesses and gives her an endless supply of that sari. So much so that powerful Dushasana, after hours of tugging and pulling the sari, is left with yards and yards, possibly even kilometers of sari behind him. But Draupadi is not disrobed. Her honor is protected. Prabal prem ke pale padkar, Prabhu ko niyam badalte dekha. In Hindi, this means, when I read the stories of the greatest love, I see the Lord changing the rules of the game. Apna maan tale tal jaye par, bhakt ka maan na talte dekha. It means that the Lord is ready to get embarrassed himself, but he will never allow the dignity of a devotee to be touched. A devotee who surrenders is more powerful than the Lord himself, because the Lord will forgive insults and injury done to him, but not that done to the devotee. And so it is that Draupadi is seen in all the paintings standing calm and composed, without doing anything. And Dushasana is defeated. Surrender requires us to give up our own little ego, to realize that we are not the doer. We think that we are doers and God is a witness. The truth is that we are all just witnesses. God is the doer. And when we realize that, that becomes surrender. Look at it in life. When anything happens, joyful or sorrowful, we are always thinking, what is it that we need to do now? If something joyful happens, what should we do to celebrate? If something sad happens, what should we do to repair the situation? We are always thinking in terms of doing and doing because we feel we are doers. Surrender means to be able to think in terms of witness. Take investing, for example. Whenever there's a stock market crash or whenever there's a stock market boom, either way, we are always thinking, what should we do? What should we do? How should we invest? Should we pull out money? Should we put in more money? Should I book profits? But history shows that the investors who have made the most money of the markets are those that just trusted the process and stayed put. Neither did they get excited and put in more money, nor did they get excited and depressed and pull out more money. They just kept going on and on with the process. Those who stayed put. The 2008 financial crisis, if we look at it, the ones that emerged unscathed from it, or possibly even richer from it, are those that did nothing when the crash happened. I personally know a few uncles who came out richer from the crash than they were before. And what did they do? Nothing. They just stayed put, trusting the process, trusting the market. Imagine if that is the reward of trusting the process in the market, what rewards we get in trusting the Lord. That is why in the 4th chapter, the 18th shloka of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, those that are able to see action in inaction and inaction in action are the wisest ones. Speaking of Draupadi's episode and investment, there is another beautiful lesson from this episode of disrobing of Draupadi. And that is having a little backstory. It is said that when Draupadi called out to Krishna and Krishna was about to respond, he thought, what is it that Draupadi has done for me? And then he remembered that on one occasion when he had cut his finger and it was bleeding, Draupadi had rushed to him, torn her silk sari and tied his finger, This was the time when the other queens and other people in the palace were running around possibly to find some antiseptic lotions and antiseptic creams and bandages. Draupadi tore her own silk sari and tied it around Krishna's finger as a bandage. Silk sari, mind it. A woman tearing her silk sari, that's a great sacrifice. Not an ordinary sari. Anyway, jokes apart, Krishna remembers this and he says, yes, Draupadi gave me a sari. I will give her a sari. But what did Draupadi give? Draupadi gave 2 inches of her sari. And what did Krishna give? 2 kilometers, 20 kilometers, a Guinness Book of World Record of sari. The Lord's grace is like an insurance that helps you beyond any limit in your time of need. There is no bound because the Lord can apply an infinite multiplication factor to what you have given Him. But then infinity, when it's multiplied with 0, it still becomes 0. Therefore, there is a need for us to give something. That is the second lesson from the disrobing of Draupadi episode. The first lesson is that we have to give up our action bias and surrender. Surrendering to the Lord. That is what happened even Gajendra Moksha, right? The elephant that was caught by the crocodile fought that crocodile for years and years, and finally the elephant, Gajendra, elephant king, was about to collapse. Then just give up. Called the Lord. Lord Vishnu comes and rescues the elephant. There is an inner significance of that episode as well. It just means that the moment you surrender, the Lord steps in. That is the first lesson. The second lesson is that we need to invest. We need to invest our time, energy for God, for Swami, because He will apply a multiplication factor that is necessary for us and give it back, give our investment back to us as grace. While we are on that subject, let's derive the third beautiful lesson that Swami tells is present in this episode. Swami tells us that when Dushasana came and began to tug at Draupadi's sari, she called out, "Oh Mathurapuri Krishna," meaning, "Oh Krishna, the resident of Mathura, please come to me." Then, "Oh Dwaraka Nivasi Krishna," she called out to him as the resident of Dwaraka. And Swami says that Krishna did not seem to be coming to her aid. And Draupadi was worried. Why is Krishna not coming when I am calling him? And Swami says, when she called out saying, "Hridaya Nivasi Krishna," "Oh Krishna, the resident of my heart," Krishna immediately manifested. And Swami sweetly in his discourse explains the logic. He says, see, when you say Dwarka Vasi Krishna, Dwarka Puri Krishna, I have to travel all the way to Dwarka and come. When you say Mathura Nivasi Krishna, I have to travel all the way to Mathura and come in order to make your word true. Because whatever you are saying is true. Yad bhavam tad bhavati. When you say Hridaya Nivasi Krishna, I am right there. So too, let us never think that our Swami is so far that he is in some Puttaparthi or Prashantinilayam or Brindavan or some ashram or some mandir. No! Swami is in our heart. Our heart is his Prashantinilayam. That is the residence that he is yearning and pining to get. Let us offer that to him. Let us offer not just our hearts. Let us offer our minds, our bodies, our everything to him. Let us surrender everything to him. Surrender, as said beautifully in that video, is the ability and is the conscious remembrance of the truth that whatever happens is good for us. Dear Swami, may we lead our lives in complete surrender to you always. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.